Hello, and welcome to the Mastering NeuroLinguistics Programming Techniques to Support Your Child's Emotional Health course. My name is Dami Alice. I am a neurolinguistics programming practitioner, and I have been practicing since 2022. On this course, our learning outcomes are to firstly understand what neurolinguistics programming is about, what some of the key benefits are, brain development in childhood, adulthood, and adolescence years, some tools that you can use to assess the behavior of your child, neurolinguistics programming techniques. We will be exploring three in particular in our time together. Okay? So, firstly, what is NLP? NLP is an approach that provides an understanding into the way our brain processes the words that we use and how that can impact on our past, present, and future behaviors. Okay? So, what are the benefits of NLP for children? This has been a lot of research and time has gone into neurolinguistics programming, and one of the key benefits are children just being able to be calm and worry less, boosting their confidence, limiting beliefs, releasing limiting beliefs, helping them with anger management, focusing on learning skills that can lead to academic excellence, building resilience, and processing emotions. Now, we're going to look at quickly child brain development, and this is just a brief understanding, a brief outline to establish how the brain works in terms of emotions. Okay, so if we look at the flow on an input process output basis, the input is the event that is happening, and the process is the way your brain is processing this information. It is processed through the prefrontal cortex that is responsible for executive function in the brain. And now, the executive function in this scenario here is the emotional regulation, and the output you see is based on the behavior. So that's what you see, that's the program. But what happens on the inside is essentially the prefrontal cortex making that decision. Okay, and so the key here is to get our children to a place where they are able to regulate their emotions, regardless of what's going on the outside, to be able to have the tools that they can use to manage their emotions going forward, and how you as a parent can help them do this. So these are the key ages. Early childhood from 0 to 5 years, their prefrontal cortex is just about to start maturing. It is not developed yet. They are in the amygdala stage at this age. So 0 to 5 is very key because it's the early childhood years. However, once we get to 6 to 12, it becomes even more important because that is when the prefrontal cortex, starts to develop. Okay, and they start to develop strategies for problem solving themselves. However, a key challenge and the major challenge here will be in the adolescent years because there is relative maturity in the limbic system, but the prefrontal cortex is also still developing. And this prefrontal cortex will continue to develop up until the mid 20s. So by 25, your prefrontal cortex has developed enough for you to be able to have mature reasoning and emotional regulation, ideally, right? But next, we're going to look at what can trigger this emotional imbalance, right? What can trigger this? So, firstly, we have education, because that's a big part of what's going on in early childhood, in early years, change in the dynamics of parental relationships, environmental factors such as relocation, friendships, change in friendship groups, change in dynamics of friendship groups, loss of a loved one, biological changes to the body. These are things that can trigger emotional imbalances. And these are just little things. With biological changes in the body, a lot of that is happening at the adolescent years. And so now the question is, how can we help support the emotions? For example, a child is feeling more angry, more anxious to start a new school, things like that. How do we work with NLP to get our children to better manage these big emotions? Now, the first thing is to understand how information is processed. It's processed through the five senses: visual, auditory, feelings, smell, and taste. And these are the ways in which information is processed as well as the ways in which information is shared. Now, the first thing is to understand the ways in which your child processes information the best. And one of the ways you can do this is by communicating with them, but you will know what exactly your child preferred method of, information processing is. If it's visual, they will refer a lot to past memories. If it's visual internal, they're looking within for past memories. If it's visual external, again, we process information through this generally. This is how human beings function. However, your child will have a preference. And so it's up to you to be able to draw to see where exactly their initial preferences lie and work with them using the techniques that we will discover on this course, okay? So now, how do you assess behavior? How do you see what's going on? You first establish context, right? You see what's going on by asking questions, the who, the what, the where, the why, the how, so that you can understand what exactly is going on there. And then you can observe body language in this time as well. In observing body language, you're able to establish what's being said and what's not being said in their emotions. The next thing that I like to do is scaling. So, scaling asks on a scale of maybe 10 to 0 or 5 to 0, how are you feeling at the moment? What can I do to help you feel better? What can you do to help you feel better? Those are the kind of questions that you can potentially ask. And obviously, speaking to a mental health professional, speaking to a professional if you've noticed extreme low moods, extreme anger, if there's anything in particular that's really worrying to you, really causing you concern, you can always reach out to someone who's a professional as well. But as part of this course, we're going to look at one of the key ways in which you can help assist your child understand their body language, and that's through the eye contact that they're making. You can use their eyes, and the diagram here visualizes what we're saying. If they look to the lower left, it usually means that they're feeling something at a deeper level. If they look to the top right, the middle right, and the lower right, these are these are all the ways in which you can establish how the child is feeling. Perhaps they're remembering images, or they're remembering experiences, or they have a self talk going on within them. So, when you have whether your child is perhaps having low confidence, a bit anxious about the new school, a change in their friendship groups, speaking to them, hearing them say one thing, but observing their body language to see what else they're saying can help you give a better assessment of the situation. Now, what are the NLP techniques that we're going to be exploring in this course? The first one is anchoring, the second one is reframing, and the third one is future pacing. Now, what is anchoring? Anchoring refers to the process of associating an internal response with an external or internal trigger. And anchoring can happen on a conscious or subconscious level. And there are a couple of types of anchors that we can have. Including these in your daily routine can definitely help your child build confidence. The type of NLP technique to use, especially when you want to trigger confidence in your child, you want to give them the tool that they can use to trigger confidence in themselves, is developing and building an anchor. So, we've looked at the different ways in which information is processed. And so these are the ways you can also use to build and develop an anchor with your child. An auditory anchor can be a word you tell your child. An auditory external anchor can be a funny song that helps them through a low mood. A visual internal anchor can be picturing a cartoon character that helps them feel more confident. A visual external anchor can be by the time it's 7 a.m., you're going to bed when you're trying to develop a routine. Visual external is basically anything that they can see physically that they can associate with what they are about to do. Kinesthetic, as we've discussed, looks at feelings and sensations. So this can be a teddy bear, for example. It can be something that they can see, hold, smell, and feel. So anything like that to help them feel safe. Perhaps if they're feeling a little anxious, things like that. That can really help a kinesthetic preferred child. So how do you anchor step by step? You first need to make sure your child is in a happy and relaxed state so that the anchor is positive. You always want to make sure that the anchor is a very positive experience, that they have positive anchors more than the negative anchors, okay? So a positive anchor is what the child is going to remember. So before you start the process of anchoring, you first need to make sure after they are in a positive and relaxed state, you do your deep breaths. You go in, breathe in for one, up until five, in and out for the count of five. That helps to relax their nervous system. Then you ask your child to relax and close their eyes. Remember a time where they felt confident about something, and they were able to achieve a goal. When they have this vision in their heads, you then ask them to share the memory with you, what they can see, what they can hear, what they feel. Then you ask them to make this image vivid in their minds, and then you ask them to capture it with your hand gesture. I like to use the thumb and the index finger quite a lot, and so you ask them to capture it almost like they're taking a picture, and to repeat this three times so that it registers in their minds. And then once you're done, you ask them to open their eyes and to test the anchor. And what you will find is that this can trigger feelings of confidence. So if they have an exam, for example, or they're about to start school and they're nervous, they're having anxiety about anything that's going on with them, and they want to feel more confident sharing their ideas in a group and things like that. If you notice your child is low in confidence, you can develop a confident boosting anchor for them. Next, we're going to move on to reframing. Reframing is used when the behavior is already established, and we're going to see exactly what reframing is in the next couple of slides and how you can reframe. So, when you reframe a child's belief, you can guide them into achieving desired outcomes more efficiently. Sometimes they have created limitations in their mind that stops them from achieving their desired goals. Again, reframing can be used to boost a child's confidence. It can be used to help limit anxiety, specifically in children when they are facing transitional periods. Again, when they're starting school and they have built a negative perhaps outcome or a negative outlook on themselves, you can look to reframe this, okay? So, reframing is a technique that can shift your child's mindset to respond in a better way to certain triggers. Reframing is about working with the unconscious mind to create change. Here is how you do reframing step by step. We're going to run through together. It requires visualization and intuition as you're looking deeper into the problem, into the root cause of the problem, the behavior and the mindset, and you're replacing it with new things. Okay. So the first thing you do is you identify what you want to work on the child with. Sometimes we want to change, but intrusive thoughts are preventing us from doing this. So sometimes your child wants to be more confident, wants to be happier, but is feeling intrusive thoughts, wants to make more friends, but is feeling intrusive thoughts about this, i.e., I can't, people think less of me and things like that. So in that case, again, when you want to get your child into a reframing mindset, you want to make sure that they go in. You start with them being in a relaxed state, counting down, breathing in and out from five through to one, and relaxing their nervous system before you start to reframe. You discuss the behavior at hand that you want to work on before they start. And then once you've identified this behavior, you ask the child to relax. You ask them to imagine them exhibiting this behavior. For example, if it's anger, you ask them to imagine themselves angry, and then you ask them to communicate with the anger. You ask them to communicate with the anxiety. You ask them to communicate with the feelings of maybe low confidence. And then children are great, are fantastic at imagining, and so trust that they're going to be able to imagine this very well. You then need to give them the time to respond without interfering in their thought processes. You look for the positive intent behind the trigger, because this is oftentimes the brain's way of just keeping them safe. Look for the positive intention, and then you ask them to think of three new positive responses that they can have to the trigger that will reframe their old ways of thinking into a better one. Now, this one requires more work. It requires you probing a little bit more as they are in the relaxed state, where you can ask them more questions on a deeper level. A lot of the times it is the brain's way of keeping them safe when they react out of anger, when they're stressed, when they're a bit anxious. And then you just need to come into new agreements with this thought process. And so once they can think of three new positive ways to respond, they can then have a trigger of reframing how they were initially thinking that old thinking into a new one. And so they make a deal with the trigger and a resourceful behavior. So this is them still lying down there. You ask them to, ask the behavior if it would accept this new deal. For example, when I'm angry, I'm going to take 5 deep breaths in before I react. When I'm in an anxious mood, I'm going to take a deep breath before communicating, or, I'm more confident, I am loved, I act in a safe way, I am respectful, I am safe, and things like that. So you ask them to make new agreements with that behavior, and then you ask them to open their eyes, looking for any patterns that do not align with the new behavior in response to the trigger. Then you perform the reframing steps again. So if you just take a look out, test, and continue. It takes constant practice, this as well. So you have to try and try again when it comes to reframing, because a lot of times the programming is deeper into the mind. So working with your child to say, okay, this is what you currently think. Let's talk to your anger. You're going to look at the anger. There's a movie that reflects this very well, Inside Out. I'll strongly recommend and advise that that's watched by all parents. Inside Out 1 and 2, watching that with your child or your care or the person that you're giving care to. And so you have a conversation with that behavior, and then you make a new deal. Anxiety is, just your brain trying to keep you safe, but it doesn't mean that when you're acting out of anxiety, you're making what's best, you're making the best decisions for you. So you have to reframe and relook at the anxiety, relook at like the thing that's making you feel very low in mood, relook at the fact that you're starting a new school, or that you're leaving your old environment, you're leaving your old high school perhaps, or you're leaving your primary school, you're leaving your old friends, and you're going to meet new friends. And so you then ask, okay, am I okay to do this? Anxiety, and anxiety will say yes. You make a new agreement with the behavior to say, when I'm anxious, I'm going to do this. When I'm low confidence, I'm going to do this. So that is the new thing that they're going to accept in their subconscious mind. Again, children are very creative, so feel free to try this over and over again. The final technique we're going to look at is future pacing. Now, future pacing is looking towards the future. We do this again for an event that has not happened yet. So we've looked at anchoring and reframing. This is future pacing. Future pacing refers to an event that is yet to occur. And this is how you do it. Okay. You ask a child to visualize in specific details a future event. So this can be for somebody who again wants to instill confidence in a particular thing, for example, in an exam type of situation. This is a tool that you can use if your child is having an exam soon, or your child is about to like take a test, start a new school, do something in the future. So you ask your child to describe the things that they can see, hear, sense, and smell and feel in that event. You ask them to visualize this experience as if it has already happened. And then you practice this anytime they feel nervous or they need reassurance. Again, this is all about working with their emotions to boost confidence in them, to give them the tools that they need to be able to work with their emotions. Okay? So, these are the events we've looked at: future pacing for events that have not yet happened, reframing for changing negative thoughts and behaviors, anchoring for creating a trigger for a specific emotion. And in summary, we have looked at the neuro linguistics programming techniques, we have looked at how information is processed and how to assess behavior. Finally, if you do need to contact me, thank you very much for taking this course. I am absolutely happy to take any questions that you have outside of this course in regards to how you can use NLP to support your child's emotional health. My email address is below. I look forward to hearing from you, to getting feedback from you, because I know this is going to be absolutely beneficial to you. Thank you very much for taking your time out to join me today. And I really look forward to hearing the positive impact that these tools are going to have in your parent child relationship. Thank you very much.